They thought she was just a weak widow. Until she unleashed her Apache training, Maria had always been a quiet presence in the town. She moved with a calm and measured pace, as if every step she took had a purpose only she could see. After losing her husband in a sudden accident, life had changed for her in ways that no one else could fully understand. People in the town pitied her, calling her fragile, lonely, and weak. They thought that because she was a widow, she had lost everything that made life meaningful. They did not know that Maria carried a strength within her that they could never imagine. Her days began early, just as the sun was breaking through the horizon. The soft pink and orange hues painted the sky, and Maria would already be awake, moving silently around her small home. She would tend to her garden, planting seeds, watering the flowers, and making sure that every plant was healthy. The garden was her sanctuary, a place where she could think and remember the lessons her husband had taught her about life, courage, and patience. Each flower was a small reminder that life could continue to grow, even after tragedy. The neighbors would often see her walking slowly through the streets, carrying a basket of fresh vegetables or bread she had baked herself. Some would nod politely, others would offer a faint smile, but most kept their distance, unsure of how to approach her. They assumed she was weak, fragile, and in need of help. They did not see the fire in her eyes, the quiet confidence in her movements, or the alertness in her senses. Maria knew she was different, but she kept that difference hidden, allowing the world to believe what it wanted about her. What the people of the town did not know was that before she had married, Maria had undergone a rigorous and rare training. She had been trained in Apache survival techniques, learning not only how to move silently and defend herself, but also how to observe, plan, and survive in the most challenging situations. It was an education in strength, patience, and precision, taught only to a select few who could endure the discipline. Those lessons had shaped her in ways that were invisible to the outside world. Over time, she had tucked those skills away, blending into the quiet life that her marriage had given her. She had learned to live as others expected her to live, not drawing attention, and not revealing the strength that ran through her veins. The accident that took her husband changed many things, but it did not change Maria herself. Inside, she still had the same alertness, the same discipline, and the same resilience that her training had instilled in her. She just allowed the world to believe she was fragile. She would spend her mornings in the garden and her afternoons helping the neighbors with small chores, carrying heavy loads, fixing fences, or assisting the elderly. She did not seek recognition for her actions, and she never boasted about her skills. She found satisfaction in quiet accomplishments and the knowledge that she was capable of far more than anyone imagined. Evenings were Maria's time for reflection. As the sun dipped below the hills, painting the sky with deep shades of red and purple, she would sit on the porch of her small house, looking out over the town. The sounds of the evening, the chirping of crickets, the distant laughter of children playing, and the soft whispers of the wind through the trees, all brought her a sense of peace. But they also reminded her of the fragility of life, the unpredictability of the world, and the importance of being prepared. She would take a deep breath, feeling the tension in her body ease as she ran through her memories and the skills she had learned during her training. Maria's neighbors continued to underestimate her. They whispered among themselves about how delicate she seemed, how little she could do without help, and how lonely she must feel. They had no idea that she was stronger than most men in the town, both in mind and in body. They did not know that the widow who seemed quiet and vulnerable could react with courage, strategy, and precision if ever tested. Maria allowed them to think what they wanted because she knew that true strength did not need to be announced. It revealed itself only when necessary, in moments that demanded action, focus, and calm. Despite the town's assumptions, Maria was not lonely. She found companionship in the small things around her. The birds that visited her garden, the soft rustle of leaves, and the simple conversations she shared with the few neighbors who dared to approach her. She would listen more than she spoke, watching carefully as people moved, spoke, and interacted. Her training had taught her to observe the world with patience and attention, and she used those skills in her daily life. Every glance, every gesture, and every sound told her something. She had learned to read people, to sense danger, and to understand situations before they fully unfolded. There were nights when Maria would lie awake, thinking about the past, about her husband, and about the life she had chosen. Her thoughts were never idle. She would imagine scenarios where she needed to defend herself, help someone in danger, or act with courage in the face of fear. These were not fantasies but exercises of the mind, ways to keep her skills sharp and her reflexes ready. The world had underestimated her, and she had no intention of ever being caught unprepared. Despite her quiet life, Maria's presence was quietly powerful. She did not need to speak loudly to command attention. She did not need to act aggressively to earn respect. Her calm demeanor, precise movements, and quiet confidence were enough to convey the strength she possessed. Anyone who tried to see her as weak would find themselves surprised if they ever challenged her or tested her resolve. Maria also understood the importance of patience. She knew that revealing her abilities too soon could be dangerous, both for herself and for those around her. She had learned through her training that timing, strategy, and observation were often more powerful than immediate action. She was patient, knowing that when the right moment came, her skills would be needed and she would be ready. Until then, she allowed the world to see only what it wanted to see, a widow, gentle and fragile, quietly living her life. In her home, Maria kept only what she needed. The furniture was simple, the decorations minimal, but every object had a purpose. She had kept small tools, ropes, and other items from her training hidden in various places, just in case. These items were reminders of her past, symbols of her readiness, and quiet assurances that she was never truly defenseless. Her home was both a sanctuary and a place of preparation, blending the ordinary with the extraordinary. The people of the town would never suspect that the widow who walked slowly through the streets, carrying vegetables and greeting neighbors politely, was capable of incredible strength, courage, and strategy. They saw only what they wanted to see, a fragile, gentle woman who had endured loss. But Maria carried within her the spirit of someone who had faced challenges far greater than their imagination could conjure. Her training, her discipline, and her inner strength were hidden beneath the calm exterior, waiting for the day when the world would need to witness them. And so, Maria's life continued, quiet yet purposeful, ordinary yet extraordinary. She lived each day with awareness, patience, and preparation, understanding that the world often misjudged those who did not display strength in obvious ways. She smiled quietly at the whispers and assumptions, knowing that her true power could not be measured by appearances. In the calm of her garden, in the quiet of her home, and in the stillness of her evenings, Maria nurtured not just her plants and surroundings but the readiness, skill, and courage that would one day reveal the incredible woman she truly was. Maria's quiet life continued much like before, yet the town's whispers about her grew louder with each passing day. People were curious about her, not in a friendly way but with a mixture of suspicion and pity. She must be so lonely, some would say. She looked so fragile, always on her own. Others assumed she needed help with even the simplest of tasks. They thought they could offer advice, assistance, or even protection, convinced she could not manage life by herself. They did not realize that every small movement she made, every decision she took, was guided by a careful awareness that came from years of intense training. Maria had learned long ago that people often judge only by what they see. They do not look deeper. They do not pause to consider the unseen strengths in others. And Maria had chosen to allow the world to think as it wished. She moved through the town with calm composure, greeting a neighbor with a small nod or a gentle smile, but never revealing the fire that simmered beneath the surface. Her eyes, alert and calculating, seemed to observe more than most people noticed. She saw everything: the way people walked, the expressions on their faces, the small tensions and rhythms of daily life that often went unnoticed. She understood that appearances were deceiving, and the town had fallen into that very trap with her. Despite their assumptions, Maria's days were never idle. After tending to her garden in the early hours, she would perform tasks that appeared ordinary but were carefully designed to maintain her physical and mental strength. She would lift heavy baskets of vegetables or firewood, not out of necessity, but to keep her muscles strong. She would practice walking silently across uneven terrain near her home, stepping lightly over stones, listening to the wind, and sensing every movement around her. These exercises were subtle, almost invisible to anyone who happened to pass by, but they kept her mind sharp and her body ready for any challenge. Her neighbors often came to her for help, assuming it would be easy for her to assist them. Maria would help, of course, always polite and kind, but she would do it in ways that reminded her of her inner discipline. She never rushed, she never showed signs of frustration, and she always appeared in control. Whether she was lifting a fallen branch from the path, helping someone carry a load of supplies, or teaching a child how to plant a seed in the garden, she did everything with quiet precision. To the townspeople, these acts were ordinary, almost mundane. They saw a helpful widow, not a trained woman with skills few could imagine. Yet Maria also noticed the unspoken judgments. People would whisper behind her back, assuming she was weak, that she could be easily intimidated or manipulated. They would gossip about her quiet life, imagining her lonely and fearful. Sometimes she overheard the comments, and a small smile would touch her lips. They did not know the truth. They had no idea that the woman they dismissed as fragile had faced challenges far beyond anything they could imagine. Her training had taught her to survive, to anticipate danger, and to remain calm in situations that might terrify others. She had learned to turn fear into focus, pain into strength, and patience into strategy. Maria's evenings were often her own, a time to reflect and plan. As the sun set and the shadows stretched across the town, she would sit by the window of her small home and watch life unfold. Children would play in the streets, laughing and running with the innocence of youth. Vendors would pack up their stalls, and neighbors would return to their homes, closing doors and shutters against the quiet of the night. Maria would observe all of it, her mind calculating, imagining, and remembering. Her thoughts often wandered to her past, to the training she had received, the challenges she had overcome, and the discipline she had mastered. Though she had lived in the town quietly for years, she was never idle. Her mind, like her body, was always ready. There were nights when the wind would blow harder, carrying strange sounds from the outskirts of the town. In those moments, Maria's senses sharpened. She could hear the subtle rustle of leaves, the distant clatter of a branch, or the faintest footsteps in the darkness. To anyone else, these sounds would be meaningless, perhaps even ignored. But to Maria they were clues, pieces of a larger puzzle that her mind instinctively tried to solve. Her eyes would scan the darkness, her body would tense slightly, and her mind would plan. Every instinct she had honed during her training was alive, waiting for the moment when it might be needed. The town's underestimation of Maria became almost predictable. People would test her indirectly, leaving tasks for her to handle, or speaking in ways meant to challenge her. "She's all alone," some would say to each other. "She probably can't manage even a small problem by herself." But Maria never reacted in anger or offense. She simply observed. She let them underestimate her, let them believe what they wanted. She understood that true strength was not measured by words or assumptions, but by actions when the moment demanded it. Sometimes Maria would take walks outside the town, venturing into the nearby woods or hills. These were not walks for leisure alone. She moved carefully, observing the terrain, testing her balance and maintaining her endurance. She would climb rocky slopes, cross streams, and navigate dense undergrowth with the quiet confidence of someone who knew every step mattered. The birds and animals around her seemed unconcerned by her presence, sensing perhaps that she moved with respect and precision. Maria's training had taught her to blend into the environment, to move silently, and to remain aware of all that surrounded her. These walks were exercises as much for her mind as her body, and she always returned home with her senses sharp and her focus intact. Even her interactions with neighbors reflected subtle lessons from her training. Maria listened more than she spoke. She paid attention to what people said and how they said it, learning small truths about their character, mood, and intentions. When someone came to her with a question or concern, she responded with thoughtfulness, never revealing the depth of her awareness. She could have easily impressed them with her knowledge, her agility, or her insight, but she chose restraint. Her quiet confidence was more powerful than any display of skill. People were drawn to her calm demeanor, even if they could not fully understand it. Despite her careful concealment of her abilities, Maria sometimes felt a thrill at the thought of what she could do if challenged. Her past training was a part of her identity, and she had never forgotten a lesson, a strategy, or a technique. She often imagined scenarios, situations where she might need to act quickly to protect herself or others. In her mind, she practiced movements, strategies, and responses, keeping her skills alive and ready. The thought of using them in the real world did not scare her. It excited her. She knew that the day would come when the town would see her not as a quiet widow, but as someone extraordinary. At the same time, Maria's humility and kindness remained intact. She did not seek recognition, and she never acted out of pride. Helping neighbors, tending her garden, and maintaining her home were acts of daily life, but also reminders to herself of the balance she maintained between ordinary life and the extraordinary abilities she possessed. She understood that strength was not just physical or tactical, it was also patience, humility, and awareness. She nurtured all these qualities, knowing that one day they might be needed in a way that would surprise everyone. Gradually, a pattern began to emerge in the town. People continued to underestimate Maria, but their assumptions started to shift subtly, almost unconsciously. There were moments when she acted with unexpected decisiveness, lifting a heavy object, solving a small but tricky problem, or calmly guiding someone through a difficult situation. Each small act was a reminder that there was more to her than met the eye. The whispers continued, but now they carried a hint of curiosity and respect, even if few dared to admit it. Maria herself remained calm through it all. She understood that true strength often goes unnoticed, that appearances are deceptive, and that the greatest power is the one that waits patiently, unseen, until the moment it is truly required. Her quiet life, her routine, her interactions with the town, all were part of a larger rhythm she maintained, a balance between blending in and being ready. She smiled quietly to herself, knowing that the world's assumptions about her were irrelevant. The truth of who she was, the strength she possessed, and the readiness she maintained would one day reveal themselves in a way that no one could ignore. And so, life continued for Maria, quiet, measured, and purposeful. She moved through the town with grace and precision, tending to her garden, assisting neighbors, and observing the world around her. The whispers of underestimation followed her wherever she went, but they no longer bothered her. She understood the value of patience, the power of discipline, and the importance of readiness. Each day was an opportunity to maintain her skills, to stay aware, and to prepare for the moment when her hidden strength would finally be revealed. Maria's story was one of quiet resilience, hidden power, and patient observation. The town saw only a widow, gentle and fragile, but she carried within her the abilities, discipline, and courage of someone who had faced far greater challenges than they could imagine. They had underestimated her, but Maria knew that the day of revelation would come, and when it did, the town would see her not as a widow to pity, but as a force to be respected, admired, and remembered. The quiet rhythm of the town was suddenly disturbed one afternoon, the way still waters ripple when a stone is thrown. People hurried along the streets, their faces tense and anxious. News had spread that a group of criminals had arrived, demanding money from the shopkeepers and threatening families. The town, usually calm and orderly, suddenly felt fragile and exposed. Doors were bolted, windows shuttered, and whispers of fear filled the air. The townspeople were terrified, unsure of how to respond. Maria, who had been tending her garden, noticed the unusual commotion. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she observed the townspeople running about in panic. She could see the fear in their movements, the hesitation, the uncertainty, the way they seemed frozen by the threat. To anyone else, the situation might have seemed overwhelming. But to Maria, it was an opportunity to act with clarity, skill, and precision. The training she had once thought hidden deep within her would soon be called upon, and she felt a quiet sense of readiness. The criminals, unaware of Maria's presence, moved with confidence, thinking the town was weak and easily intimidated. They barked orders, gestured aggressively, and demanded that the shopkeepers hand over their earnings. Some of the townspeople trembled, obeying their demands in fear of confrontation. Others stood at a distance, whispering among themselves, unsure of what could be done. No one had the courage to step forward. Everyone assumed that the widow in the small house at the edge of town would be just another frightened soul, hiding behind closed doors. Maria watched silently for a few moments, her mind analyzing every movement. She noted the number of people, their positions, and the way they interacted with the townspeople. Her heart remained calm, her breathing steady. Years of Apache training had taught her to observe first, react second, and always plan multiple steps ahead. She could feel the familiar surge of focus, the sense of readiness that came when a challenge demanded everything she had learned. She did not panic, she did not hesitate, she moved. Walking toward the scene with deliberate calm, Maria could feel the eyes of the townspeople on her. Some whispered, "That widow is walking toward them. She's so brave or foolish." Others looked on with concern, certain that she would be quickly overpowered. They did not know the truth. Maria did not need strength in numbers. She did not rely on intimidation or fear to protect herself. Her training had taught her to use strategy, awareness, and precise action to neutralize threats. As she approached the criminals, they noticed her presence. One of them sneered, assuming she was a harmless woman, someone who would be easily ignored. "And what do we have here?" he said with a mocking tone. "Another weak widow to scare?" Maria did not answer. She did not raise her voice. She simply moved with purpose, positioning herself between the criminals and the shopkeepers, her eyes calm but unyielding. Her posture was firm, her movements controlled, and every step she took demonstrated a quiet authority that the men did not anticipate. The townspeople gasped. They had never seen her like this. The widow they had assumed to be fragile was standing confidently in the face of danger, unafraid and composed. Her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the aggression of the criminals, and it immediately unsettled them. They had expected panic, hesitation, and fear. Instead, they were met with clarity, focus, and a presence that demanded attention. Maria's training allowed her to read their body language, anticipate their actions, and respond with precision. Without warning, one of the criminals lunged forward, attempting to intimidate her. Maria reacted instantly. She sidestepped with grace, using the momentum against him, guiding him safely but firmly away from the crowd. Her movements were swift and deliberate, the kind of precision that comes only from years of practice. The man stumbled, surprised by her agility and control, and the others froze, unsure how to respond. The townspeople watched in awe, realizing that the widow they had underestimated was far more capable than they had ever imagined. Maria's mind was focused on strategy. She knew that confrontation alone was not enough. She needed to protect the townspeople while minimizing risk to herself. She assessed the environment quickly, noting doors, obstacles, and possible escape routes. Every action she took was calculated, designed to maintain safety, create distance, and assert control without unnecessary violence. Her calmness was infectious. The shopkeepers and neighbors began to feel a glimmer of hope, seeing someone act decisively when everyone else had frozen in fear. The criminals, growing frustrated, attempted to surround her, expecting fear or hesitation, but Maria was always one step ahead. She moved with purpose, creating openings, redirecting their momentum, and using precise movements to maintain control. Her body, trained to react instinctively, responded without hesitation. Every step, every gesture was deliberate, yet fluid. The scene unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance, one that left the criminals disoriented and the townspeople amazed. By now, the crowd had gathered at a safe distance, watching in disbelief. They had only ever known Maria as a quiet, reserved widow. Now they saw a woman transformed, a protector, a strategist, and a force of courage. She was no longer the figure they had pitied. She was someone who demanded respect, someone whose strength could not be ignored. The whispers of doubt had turned into murmurs of admiration. Children peeked from behind walls, inspired by the courage they had never imagined in their quiet neighbor. Maria continued her careful engagement, always aware of her surroundings. She moved the criminals gradually away from the civilians, blocking paths and redirecting them with minimal force. Her goal was never to harm unnecessarily, but to protect, control, and neutralize the threat efficiently. The Apache training she had long kept hidden was guiding her every action, lessons in observation, timing, and restraint that allowed her to maintain control in a dangerous and chaotic situation. Time seemed to slow for the townspeople as they watched. Every step Maria took was deliberate yet natural. She did not shout, she did not panic, and she did not falter. The contrast between her calmness and the criminals' aggression was stark. Some townspeople could hardly believe what they were witnessing. The widow they had dismissed as weak was demonstrating a mastery of skill, courage, and presence that few could match. It was as if a new person had emerged, someone they had never truly known, yet who had always existed beneath the surface. One of the criminals, frustrated by his inability to intimidate her, tried a more aggressive approach, attempting to block her path and threaten the shopkeepers. Maria anticipated the move instantly. With a swift, controlled maneuver, she deflected his advance, guiding him harmlessly to the side while maintaining control of the situation. Her actions were precise, efficient, and graceful. She did not panic, and she did not show anger. Her calm confidence and strategic thinking had completely shifted the balance of power. As the confrontation continued, the criminals began to realize that they were not dealing with a helpless widow, but with someone who was prepared, alert, and unafraid. They tried to regroup, to intimidate, and to assert dominance, but Maria's awareness and skill were far superior. Each attempt they made to assert control was met with calm precision, and slowly, their confidence began to waver. The townspeople, once paralyzed by fear, now watched with hope, inspired by the courage and skill of the woman they had underestimated. By the time the last criminal retreated, the town was silent. No one moved, no one spoke, as they processed what they had just witnessed. Maria stood calmly, her posture relaxed but alert, her eyes scanning the crowd and the retreating threat. She had not sought recognition, and she did not seek applause. She had acted because it was necessary, because her training and her sense of responsibility demanded it. The townspeople, however, could not contain their admiration. They saw the widow not as fragile or weak, but as someone extraordinary, someone whose courage and skill had saved them all. Maria allowed the silence to linger for a moment before speaking softly to reassure the shopkeepers and neighbors. "It's all right now," she said calmly. "Everything is safe." Her voice was steady, composed, and gentle, yet it carried authority. People stepped forward, expressing gratitude, their eyes wide with respect and wonder. They had assumed weakness, but Maria had revealed strength, patience, and courage in a way that no one could forget. From that day forward, the town's perception of Maria changed forever. She was no longer just a widow living quietly at the edge of town. She had proven that appearances could be deceiving, that strength often hides beneath the surface, and that courage can emerge in the most unexpected moments. Her quiet life, once underestimated, had become a story of inspiration and awe for the townspeople. Children would tell stories of the widow who faced danger with calm and skill, and adults would look to her with newfound respect. Maria, however, returned to her daily routine as if nothing had changed. She tended her garden, helped neighbors, and walked the streets with the same calm composure. She understood that true strength was not in seeking recognition, but in being prepared when the world demanded it. Her first real challenge had revealed her abilities, but it had also reaffirmed the importance of patience, observation, and discipline, lessons she had learned long ago and carried with her every day. The town would never underestimate her again. And Maria knew that the day of true recognition had only just begun. The morning after the first confrontation, the town was alive with talk. People whispered about what had happened, describing Maria's courage with astonishment. But Maria herself was calm, moving through her small home as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. She tended her garden, prepared breakfast, and even took time to mend a fence for a neighbor. To the casual observer, she appeared unchanged, quiet, and ordinary. Yet Maria knew the town was still vulnerable. The criminals might return, stronger or more determined. And while the townspeople now held her in quiet respect, she understood that real courage required action, not recognition. She stepped outside, feeling the morning sun on her face, and surveyed the streets. Shops had reopened, but tension lingered in the air. People moved cautiously, glancing around as they carried supplies or opened doors. Maria's eyes scanned the town with precision. She noticed small details others would overlook: a loose shutter, a gate left unlocked, a shadow moving in the distance. Her senses, sharpened by years of training, absorbed every bit of information. She understood that preparation and awareness were as critical as courage itself. The criminals had not yet returned, but Maria was ready. She had spent the previous night reviewing every step of her first encounter in her mind. She remembered their movements, their patterns, and the way they had attempted to assert dominance. She planned every possibility, imagining different scenarios and her response to each. Her training had taught her that control came from knowledge, timing, and strategy, not brute force alone. Every movement she practiced, every decision she planned, brought her closer to being fully prepared for whatever might come next. By midday, the first signs of trouble appeared again. A group of men approached from the main road, moving with more confidence than the last time. They assumed the town would be easy to intimidate, expecting fear and panic. They did not expect Maria to be ready. As they drew closer, Maria positioned herself strategically, placing herself where she could see everything and respond immediately. Her presence was calm yet commanding, a silent warning that this time they would not find easy prey. The townspeople gathered behind her, unsure of what to do. Some whispered encouragement, others held their breath, afraid the confrontation might escalate. But Maria did not hesitate. Her calmness reassured them, even if they could not fully understand it. She had learned that true leadership came not from words or commands, but from presence, confidence, and decisive action. Her calm eyes, steady stance, and purposeful movements radiated strength, inspiring courage in those around her. The criminals, noticing her approach, laughed at first. "The widow again," one sneered. "We'll have her running in no time." But Maria did not respond with words. She did not need to. Her movements, her composure, and the intensity in her eyes spoke louder than anything she could say. Step by step, she guided the townspeople to safe positions, ensuring that no one was in harm's way. Then, with a fluid and deliberate motion, she began to engage the criminals. Maria's training allowed her to anticipate every move. When one of the men attempted to rush her, she sidestepped smoothly, using his momentum to guide him harmlessly away from others. Another tried to block her path, but she moved with precision, redirecting him with a controlled and effortless motion. Every movement was deliberate, efficient, and carefully measured. The criminals, expecting panic and disorganization, found themselves unprepared for her skill. They were disoriented, unable to predict her actions or regain control of the situation. The townspeople watched in awe. They had never imagined such courage and skill in the quiet widow they had known for years. Maria moved among the criminals like a force of nature, calm yet unstoppable. Her actions were guided by strategy and experience, not anger. She did not seek to harm unnecessarily, but she did not allow threats to continue. She maintained control, creating space, protecting the innocent, and neutralizing danger with precision. At one point, a man attempted to grab a child who had wandered too close to the commotion. Maria reacted instantly, positioning herself between the child and the threat. With a swift, controlled movement, she redirected the man away without causing harm. Her timing was perfect, and the townspeople could hardly believe what they had seen. She was not just defending herself. She was protecting everyone around her, thinking ahead and acting with foresight that few could match. The criminals, now realizing that their intimidation tactics had failed, tried to regroup. They moved as a group, attempting to surround Maria and regain control. But she anticipated their actions, shifting positions with ease, always one step ahead. Her movements were almost like a dance, calculated, precise, and perfectly timed. She used their momentum, their aggression, and their assumptions against them, turning every action they took into an advantage for herself. The townspeople began to understand something remarkable. Maria was not just brave, she was disciplined, focused, and strategic. She was applying skills that went far beyond ordinary self-defense. Every move, every step, every glance was the result of years of training and preparation. The widow they had once thought fragile was now a figure of authority, courage, and awe. Their whispers of doubt had turned into expressions of admiration, and even fear had transformed into respect. By the afternoon, the criminals were exhausted and confused. Their confidence had eroded completely. Maria's calm control, her awareness, and her ability to anticipate every move had neutralized their threats without unnecessary violence. One by one, they retreated, leaving the town in peace. Maria stood silently, observing their departure, her posture relaxed but ready. She had not needed to shout, fight aggressively, or display anger. Her skills, focus, and strategic thinking had been enough. The townspeople approached cautiously, still in awe. They had watched something extraordinary. Children whispered to each other about the widow who had protected everyone, and adults nodded in quiet amazement. They no longer saw Maria as fragile or weak. She was a protector, a strategist, and a source of strength. She had demonstrated that appearances could be deceiving, and that true courage often hides beneath calm, quiet exteriors. After the danger had passed, Maria returned to her home. She tended to her garden once more, baked bread, and helped a neighbor with minor repairs. To the casual observer, she had simply resumed her daily life. But inside, she felt a quiet satisfaction. She had not acted for recognition, praise, or reward. She had acted because it was necessary, because her skills and training demanded that she respond when others could not. She had protected the town, preserved peace, and demonstrated strength in a way that would leave a lasting impression. That evening, the town gathered to discuss what had happened. Shopkeepers, neighbors, and even children spoke of Maria's courage and skill. They had seen the widow they once underestimated stand calm and unwavering in the face of danger. Her actions had not only protected them but inspired them. The town's perspective of Maria had shifted completely. She was no longer just a quiet widow. She was a symbol of resilience, preparation, and hidden strength. Maria listened quietly to the praise and admiration, offering only gentle words of reassurance. "We must always look out for one another," she said calmly. "Courage comes in many forms, and everyone has the strength to face challenges if they are prepared." Her words reflected both humility and wisdom. She had revealed her abilities, but she had also taught the town an important lesson, that true strength is often hidden, and courage can be found in those who appear ordinary. As night fell, Maria returned to her home, reflecting on the day's events. She knew that the town had witnessed only a part of her abilities. There were still lessons to be learned, skills to be honed, and threats that might arise in the future. But she was ready. She had faced danger, protected the innocent, and demonstrated the strength that had been hidden for so long. Her calm confidence, discipline, and training had prevailed, and she had earned the respect and admiration of the people she had protected. The town's perception of Maria had changed forever. They no longer whispered about her fragility. They no longer assumed she was weak or vulnerable. They had seen her courage, skill, and strategic thinking in action, and they knew that she was someone extraordinary. And yet Maria herself remained humble, returning to her daily life as if nothing had changed. She understood that true strength does not seek recognition, but quietly ensures safety, order, and justice when it is needed most. Maria's story was no longer just about a quiet widow living at the edge of town. It was about resilience, courage, and the hidden power that can emerge when the world demands it. The townspeople had learned an invaluable lesson. Never underestimate someone based on appearances, for true strength often lies beneath a calm and ordinary exterior. And Maria, the widow who had been thought weak, had shown them the extraordinary power of preparedness, patience, and courage. After the events of the past days, the town was forever changed. People spoke in hushed tones of the widow who had faced danger with unmatched courage and skill. Her calm presence during the attacks had left an indelible mark on everyone who witnessed it. But Maria herself remained quiet and unassuming, returning to her daily routines as if nothing extraordinary had happened. She tended her garden with the same care, baked bread for her neighbors, and walked through the town with her usual calm grace. Yet beneath that quiet exterior, she carried a deep sense of satisfaction. She had not sought glory, only to protect those around her. The townspeople, however, could not forget what they had seen. Shopkeepers who had once doubted her abilities now spoke of her with admiration. Children shared stories of the brave widow who had confronted danger without hesitation, their eyes wide with awe. Even the elders, who had long been skeptical of her quiet lifestyle, recognized her extraordinary courage and resilience. Slowly, whispers of doubt transformed into words of respect and gratitude. Maria had shown them that true strength was not measured by appearances, but by courage, skill, and readiness to act when it was needed most. Maria's reputation spread beyond the town as well. Travelers passing through would hear the story of the widow who had protected her community. People from nearby villages came to see her, not out of curiosity, but out of admiration and respect. They brought gifts of food, flowers, and handmade crafts as tokens of gratitude. Maria accepted them with her usual calm humility, never boasting, never claiming credit. She understood that recognition was not the goal. Protection, service, and preparedness were her true mission. Despite the praise, Maria did not let herself be distracted. She continued her routines, maintaining the balance between her ordinary life and the extraordinary skills that had saved her town. Her mornings were spent tending the garden, her afternoons helping neighbors, and her evenings reflecting on the day. Every action she took was thoughtful, deliberate, and measured. She remained ready for any challenge that might arise, aware that true courage required ongoing preparation and vigilance. The townspeople began to seek her guidance. They came to her not only for help with physical tasks, but for advice in matters of safety and strategy. She taught them simple ways to remain aware of their surroundings, how to prepare for emergencies, and how to protect themselves and others without panic. Maria's lessons were always practical, grounded in her real-life experiences and training. The town began to feel safer, not just because of her presence, but because they had learned to adopt some of the strength, awareness, and discipline she embodied. In the days that followed, the town slowly returned to normalcy, but a new energy had taken root. There was a sense of unity, confidence, and resilience that had not existed before. People looked at each other with renewed respect, inspired by the example Maria had set. They were no longer passive observers of life, but participants who understood the importance of courage and preparedness. And all the while, Maria remained a quiet guide, a steady presence who led by example rather than words. Maria herself reflected on how much had changed. The widow who had once been underestimated was now recognized not only as a protector, but as a symbol of resilience. Yet she remained humble, knowing that her strength was not about admiration, but about responsibility. She understood that her abilities were a gift meant to serve others, and she carried that responsibility with grace. She also knew that life could be unpredictable, that challenges could arise at any moment, and that true courage required constant vigilance and inner discipline. The town continued to thrive, but they never forgot the lessons Maria had taught them. They realized that courage could come from the most unexpected places, and that strength often lies beneath calm and ordinary exteriors. Children would grow up hearing the story of the widow who had defended them with skill and bravery, learning early that appearances can be deceiving, and that true courage is found in actions, not assumptions. The elders would tell the younger generation that respect must be earned through deeds, patience, and preparation, using Maria's example as proof. Even the criminals who had once threatened the town never returned. They had learned that the community was protected by someone extraordinary, someone whose strength and courage could not be challenged lightly. Maria's reputation alone became a deterrent, a reminder that the town was no longer an easy target. But Maria did not rely on fear or intimidation to maintain peace. Her goal had always been protection, not domination. She understood that true strength lay in the ability to act decisively when needed while maintaining compassion, calm, and respect for all. Over time, Maria became a figure of quiet inspiration. People from far and wide would come to visit, hoping to learn from her example. She welcomed them with patience and humility, sharing lessons about courage, observation, and preparedness. Her teachings were simple yet profound, emphasizing discipline, focus, and respect for oneself and others. The town embraced these lessons, growing stronger not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Maria's influence extended far beyond her immediate actions, shaping the character of the entire community. Despite her newfound recognition, Maria never let herself become prideful or arrogant. She continued to live simply, tending her home, caring for her garden, and assisting those in need. She had learned long ago that true courage is quiet and that true strength does not require constant display. Her satisfaction came from knowing that she had acted correctly, protected others, and inspired courage in the people around her. The admiration of the town was a byproduct, not a goal. The children in the town often approached her, curious and eager to learn. Maria would show them how to move carefully, observe their surroundings, and think before acting. She taught them the importance of patience, awareness, and preparation in everyday life. The children listened intently, inspired by the woman they had once thought of as fragile. Through her guidance, they learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act thoughtfully and decisively despite it. Neighbors who had once doubted her abilities now sought her counsel in times of uncertainty. Maria would quietly guide them, offering practical advice and demonstrating the importance of calm thinking and preparation. She encouraged them to trust in themselves while remaining vigilant. Her teachings were never imposed but offered with gentle encouragement, allowing each person to grow at their own pace. Her influence strengthened the town in ways that went far beyond physical protection. As the months passed, the town became a safer, more cohesive community. The people moved with confidence, supported by the example and guidance of Maria. They had learned that courage could come from unexpected sources, and that strength is often hidden beneath calm and quiet exteriors. Maria's legacy was no longer just about the events of that single day. It had become a living, breathing part of the community. Her courage, discipline, and humility inspired generations to come. Maria herself remained grounded in her simple life. She continued her daily routines, tending to her home and garden, assisting neighbors, and observing the town with calm awareness. She had acted decisively when needed, but she had also maintained humility and patience, understanding that true strength is both practical and measured. She had taught the town lessons that would endure long after the immediate threat had passed. At night, Maria would sit by her window, reflecting quietly on the life she had lived and the lessons she had learned. She knew that challenges could arise at any moment, and that her training, discipline, and awareness would always be needed. Yet she also felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that she had acted with courage, protected her community, and inspired respect and admiration. She had become more than a widow. She had become a symbol of resilience, preparation, and strength in the face of adversity. The townspeople continued to honor her in subtle ways, offering help, bringing gifts, or simply acknowledging her with respect and warmth. Maria, however, never sought recognition. She had proven to herself that courage and skill are valuable when used to protect and inspire others. Her legacy was not built on admiration alone, but on the lives she had impacted, the lessons she had taught, and the courage she had inspired in those around her. Through her actions, Maria had transformed the perception of what it meant to be strong, courageous, and resilient. She had shown that true power does not need to be announced. It reveals itself in action, preparedness, and the quiet confidence of someone ready to act when the world demands it. The town had learned that appearances could be deceiving, and that those who seemed ordinary often held extraordinary strength. Maria had become a living example of this truth, a quiet hero whose impact would last for generations. In the end, Maria's story was one of transformation for herself and for the town. She had faced danger, acted with courage and skill, and protected those who could not protect themselves. She had earned respect, inspired courage, and demonstrated the power of preparation, discipline, and quiet strength. And while she continued to live simply, tending her garden and assisting her neighbors, the town would never forget the widow who had revealed extraordinary courage when it was needed most. Her legacy endured in the hearts of the people she had saved, in the lessons she had shared, and in the quiet confidence she had instilled in an entire community. Maria had shown that strength, courage, and resilience are not always visible, but when revealed, they can change lives forever.